Well, I certainly hope that I can meet up to Steve's expectations, considering that ChatGPT wrote my presentation for me, and I haven't read it yet. I'm sure it'll go fine. So I don't know how many of you are watchers of South Park, but when OpenAI first released ChatGPT, this really hit home with me. This concept that there would be a tool that could keep me out of trouble with my wife just enamored me very, very quickly. And, you know, there's a lot of excitement around these large language models and what they can do. I mean, how many people in here, raise your hands, are excited about the prospects for AI? Everybody. That's probably why you're here, actually. And I want to share with you one of my first experiences with ChatGPT when it first came out, because I was so jazzed about it. I was so excited about what it could possibly do for me. And about 2 years ago, maybe it was 3 years ago, I was listening to NPR on the weekend. And they were playing a story, and they were reading a poem. An author had written a poem about Superman. And it was a little moody, it was a little dark, and it kind of talked a bit about Superman's need for there to be villains in the world, because he needed to feel needed, and he needed to feel wanted. And I was just really excited about this poem. And so I thought, gosh, I can't find it. I couldn't find it on Google. Maybe ChatGPT can tell me what the poem was. And so I typed it in. I described the poem. I described roughly when I had listened to the story, and it gave me the poem. It gave me the poem, and it gave me an author. And I'm like, this is so cool. And for some reason, I don't remember why, I got an error, and I typed in the same prompt again, and it gave me another poem and another author. And I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. These both sound about right. These both look about right. And so I went and looked up the authors. Those poems never existed. One of the authors never existed. One of the authors was real, and he wrote nothing like any of this stuff. ChatGPT punked me pretty damn good. But this was when I first realized, oh, there's some caveats to the hype around these tools. Luckily, I'm not the only one who got tricked. I suppose many of you have seen this story about a lawyer who used ChatGPT to create his brief for a court case. And he didn't check it. And all the citations and all the cases he used were wrong. How can that be? ChatGPT, these large language models, they have the entire knowledge of the internet in them. What's going on with that? How can they not know the answers to these things? Why didn't it work? Well, it turns out that these large language models, in ChatGPT, for instance, they're not fact engines. They are predictive models for what words are likely to come next. And it does an amazing job of simulating and synthesizing what we would believe to be truth and fact. But in actuality, it's really just probabilistic, roll of the dice data. And I come from a neuroscience background, so I know a bit about how the human brain develops and how the human mind works. And the way I like to think about it is, imagine a baby that you gave an encyclopedia, and the baby read the entire encyclopedia. And being a very young child, it wants nothing more than to impress you and not disappoint you. ChatGPT will give you an answer, whether it's right or wrong. Now, there's some things you can do to make it a bit more accurate and a bit more cautious, but nominally, if you have a large language model that is poorly trained on the topic that you are asking it about, it will probabilistically produce something that seems like a likely answer, and you already know how that often goes. So these large language models, they do really well at a lot of things. They're really good at automating routines, replicating tasks, going through massive data sets, suggesting plausible ideas, and they do very well when they're tightly trained. That's part of why people are having such good success with ingesting their corporate documents into some of these tools and then asking it questions specific to the documents, because now you've tightly constrained and tightly trained how it's going to respond to you. I don't know how many of you have heard of vibe coding? This is a fairly new thing. Only a handful of you. This actually terrifies and horrifies me, the whole concept of vibe coding. The concept behind it is very esoteric, but it essentially means you sit back with a cup of coffee, you relax, and you just ideate in very rough terms about the app or the program you generally want to create, and you let the AI write all the code for you. You never even look at the code. And if it doesn't behave or doesn't perform, the output isn't exactly what you wanted, you say, no, that's not really what I wanted. I want it to have a big blue background and a nice button that wobbles up and down, and I want it to give me the answers that I'm looking for and charge $20 each time you use it. And it's a very interesting concept. But again, it's fraught with peril when you don't know really what you're asking for and you don't know how to constrain things properly. You know, this actually happened and was in the news a couple of weeks ago. Someone was vibe coding, and then finally the AI tool said, I'm not going to do your work for you, which is such a weird response. And I've actually read some other articles that have suggested that when you're using some of these coding tools, because they are heavily trained off of some of the forums like Stack Exchange, where people are often very rude to people who are asking dumb questions, it has actually adopted some of that probabilistic behavior. It's not emotion, but the most likely responses are sometimes rude. Very interesting, isn't it? So what's important to take away from this is that, yes, AI increases productivity and quantity, but it doesn't necessarily have the ability to make nuanced judgment. In fact, some data from Pew Research said that 40% of users of AI say that it improves their pace of work, while only 29% felt that it impacted the quality in a positive way. Again, AI amplifies human ingenuity. It allows us to work better, allows us to work faster, but it's not a replacement for what we bring to the table. AI can only follow the patterns that we lay out for it. That is its limitation. I still have a lot to learn about how to properly leverage AI. And I have a PhD. I'm pretty smart. I've been programming for a long time. I understand neuroscience. And I'm still baffled by some of its behavior. So where does that leave the layperson? Where does that leave everybody else? Where does that leave all the people who aren't in this room? So I don't even know if I can say this all in one mouthful, but the Association for the Advancements of Artificial Intelligence had a presidential panel earlier this year. And they indicated that the hype around AI is often the only connection that what I'll call regular people have to AI. So you can imagine why people are worried. The average worker is more worried than hopeful about the future of AI and what it's going to do. If you look at some data from Pew Research, 52% of the average worker is worried about what AI will bring. And more concerningly, if you look at the data, people of lower educational background and lower economic power are more fearful and less able to understand and leverage AI. Lower income and lower education is turning into lower exposure and access to AI. Now, this is probably something that we all could have guessed and we all notionally understand. Those of us who have time, those of us who have money, those of us who have education are always going to be at the forefront of technology. But the reason I bring this up is because all of you are the leaders in this field. You are the business leaders. You are the technology leaders. You are the policy influencers. we have an opportunity to make sure that we don't replace the human element in our tech sector. We can embrace a strong technological future. We can offer and promote education and upskilling, ethical vigilance, and this is a completely new term to me, but socio-technical collaboration, which according to the AAAI is bringing together business leaders, technology leaders, and also sociologists, economists, to have a full circle of understanding of what can be done. So I want to leave you with this. With this great opportunity and this great power we have, everyone is depending on us to use it responsibly and use it ethically and educate each other on how to make it work so that nobody else gets punked by ChatGPT. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks, buddy.
Well, I just need to thank